Work and Home Department, Power, place according to provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, PL 1975. I notice for this meeting was moved to the all-purpose room at Lincoln School, 402nd Avenue, was provided to the rest of the reader, advertising on June 29, 2017. So, issue is something to start leisure company books, the news company, bulletin board, and all the books, and clerk, and forming the open meeting, political provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, PL 1975. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Good evening. Please lower your cell phones or shut them off. Appreciate that. Mr. Renan, you have something for us this evening?
The only thing I can think of, Mayor, is we prepared the ordinance for parking changes as requested. I think that's on the reduction. I'm also working on an ordinance to create the office of parking enforcement officer. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Renan this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. Ms. Ariella, do you have anything for us tonight?
No, let's come again. You decided about recycling content? You don't have to decide tonight, but anybody, next time you're going to do that, that's why I kind of
I'd recommend to continue going with waste management and renew the one-year option. That's just my recommendation, council. The increase is negligible, maybe $100 at most. So I think that you're looking at a $60-some-odd-thousand agreement that is probably in our best interest as opposed to going a bit.
Do we have a consensus for the recommendation?
I would agree with that, Mayor. Unless the Streets and Roads Committee has any different recommendation, I'm okay with that. I would agree with that.
I don't know why you can't go to bid. Why couldn't it go to bid?
I'm recommending that
It's a
you
recommendation.
can. My recommendation is to not put it on.
Councilman Isaro?
I agree with that.
Thank you.
What's right now is 69.3, so I don't think you go to it. I'm not sure. So you said you have market was.
Yeah, I mean, the market is very volatile. I don't know if it's best interest to go with
That's a
this
low
all the
price.
time. So I think we should just renew it. You go out with bid, you get something worse. That's based on what I'm seeing.
But you don't have to accept it, correct?
You have to accept the bids that you go out for bid. No, you don't have to accept bids that you go out for bid. There is a cost in going out for bids.
But also, too, we have, at this point, we have a consensus of the council to go forward with that contract. So,
No, we still have the option.
you have a, currently, we have a 5-1 vote.
And Joe, you think you would get a hold of?
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount, but I want to say it's a couple $100 because it was only a few years ago.
Okay, I'll look. So we'll agree to.
Yes, Ms. Ariel, please go forward with that. Okay, any unfinished business for the council this evening? Any new business? I'd just like to remind everyone that this Saturday is Mayor's Saturday at Borough Hall, 11 a.m. And I've invited Councilman Lazaro to join me, and hopefully we'll have some residents come and talk and chat with us. That's all I have. Comments for matters of discussion from members of the council. Councilwoman Rubenstein.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Cooper. Councilwoman.
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Petroselli? Nothing, Mayor. Councilman Sarno?
The only question I have is, will the presentation be made prior to the vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Council President Tedesco?
Thanks, Mayor. I just have one item. In our council mail, we received a copy of the resolution from Cranford advocating the state of New Jersey to move forward with the idea of a gateway program to add a third tunnel into the city. And based on discussions I've heard about this from residents and also what's been in the news about the Gateway project and how that can help the commuters as well as the economy and businesses here in New Jersey, specifically in our area with the Raritan Valley line. I know we're pushing here in Garwood for more stops and more one-seat rides. We've gotten a couple, but there's still much more to go. I think this program would be really beneficial to Garwood, and so I'd like to also ask the council to support a resolution like this, just as Cranford did.
I would support that resolution, definitely, with obviously with what's going on with the closing of some of the train lines going to Penn Station. It's really pertinent that we continue to put pressure on those people to support a new line. So I would definitely be in support of that.
What's going on, you're hearing it called the quote-unquote summer of hell. Based on what's going on here at Penn Station, I think it's in our best interest to support a resolution to increase the rail traffic going into New York and upgrading our rail services so that we are moving better with the times. I mean, we have neighboring rail systems that move a lot faster than what's going on with the big transit. So for me, this is a benefit to the town no matter what.
Okay.
To me, this is sort of a no-brainer, that this is completely necessary, and I completely support a resolution.
Sarah, on the agenda.
Thanks for supporting.
Thank you. Public comment? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council? Please step to the microphone, state your full name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none at this time, we'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, we have to wait 4 minutes to get to the subject.
Okay, hold on. May I answer the microphone?
So we just adjourned the meeting.
Pardon?
We just adjourned the meeting.
Mr. McCormick, upon no executive session.
Which one would you like, Mr. Mayor? You want it this way?
How's that?
How's that? The audience has a preference? How's it look from upstairs?
Is it better?
That looks good. Good, thank you. Sir, do you not work the lights just in front of the screen? No.
But do that. It'll get a little dark.
Okay, thank you.
That's your other choice.
Section. In the middle of the selection. pledge for a moment of silence to the salute to the flag.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At our close of this meeting, provided for the Western Leader, advertised on January 5th, 2017, notification of Central Star Ledger, promptly posted on the municipal public bulletin board and filed in the office of the municipal clerk, informing the public of the time and place according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, PL 1975. As of the notice of this meeting was moved to the all-purpose room at the school forum at Second Avenue, was provided for Westfield, and advertised on June 29, 2017, notification of Central Star Ledger, and promptly posted on the municipal public bulletin board and filed in the office of the municipal clerk, informing the public of time and place according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, 1975. Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Mayor Moore.
Here.
Councilman Blumenstock.
Here.
Councilman Kukrow.
Here.
Councilman Lazaro.
Here.
Councilman Petrozelli.
Here.
Councilman Sarno.
Here.
Council President Sisto.
Here.
Can I have a minute, please?
Executive session minutes of the mayor and council on June 26, 2017. Regular workshop and executive session minutes of the mayor and council held on June 27, 2017.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Communications.
New Jersey State Municipalities, Mayor's Advisory.
Receive and file.
Councilman Clark, Board of Health and Police and Fire Resolution.
Receive and file.
And Councilman Cranford, Resolution regarding David.
Receive and file. Ordinance, public hearing on ordinance 17-11, 17-12, 17-13, 17-14, and 17-15, advertised in the Westfield News. Ms. Ariema, please read 17-11 by title only.
Mr. Mayor, in order to amend chapter 160 code of the Code of the Borough of Garwood, revised towing regulations and fees.
Ms. Ariema, did you receive any correspondence?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone present wish to be heard on ordinance 17-11? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 17-11?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a motion to be made to adopt ordinance 17-11?
So moved.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Ariana.
Councilman Blumenstock. Aye. Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Council President Sisto.
Aye.
Ms. Ariana, please read ordinance 17-12 by title only.
An ordinance to amend 106-138, 106-139, 106-141, the central business, general business, and community commercial zone, 106-42, signs permitted in the light industrial, industrial, commercial zone, and 106-144, in Article 11, signs, in Chapter 106, land use, of the Borough of Garwood, to permit and regulate portable signs in certain commercial zone districts and to modify other sign regulations.
Ms. Ariana, did you receive any correspondence?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone present wish to be heard on ordinance 17-12? Come to the microphone, name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor and gentlemen of the council. Bruce Patterson, 325 Avenue, simple question. Just could somebody give us an overview of what this ordinance is, what it changed?
Basically, Bruce, all we did was modify the planning board's recommendations. We modified the planning board's recommendations. We pretty much went along with what they chose, and we pretty much agree with it. There was a couple little things on there we didn't, and we just don't need that.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on 17-12?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 17-12?
So moved.
Any discussion?
The only thing I have to ask is, has there been any correspondence with the business community in regards to the ordinance? Anything from the Chamber of Commerce, any local businesses?
Hi. Councilman, I don't know but as you and I so sat at the planning board, the business representative on the board was going to reach out to all his constituents and hopefully we can learn something from that. I know it would be after the fact, but at least we can get some feedback. I know we can make recommendations from that point.
Can't support it. We're not here for
Mayor, if I could just speak to this, because this portable sign ordinance has been floating around for actually a few years now. It had been first brought to the attention of the council and the Laws and License Committee when Councilwoman Tarantino was the chair of that committee, and I can assure you that her and I personally went out and looked at all the signs to see how we could ensure that most businesses would not be affected by any change in the regulation. For example, one of the concerns the planning board had, not all members, but some raised was whether or not to allow plastic signage. However, when Ann and I had gone out there, we noticed that many of the businesses did have a thick plastic sign, but it was still high quality enough and reasonable. And of course, we wouldn't want to see every business have to either throw away a sign they had paid hundreds of dollars for, or incur costs getting new ones. So essentially, it affects very few businesses. It was mainly aimed to regulate the size so that you do not see billboard-like signs outside of businesses on our main thoroughfares, North Avenue and South Avenue. So I just want to let you know that that went into the process. And also, Mayor, what I would encourage is if this ordinance passes tonight, that the businesses are notified, given a letter, whether it's signed by you or comes from council with your signature as well. Maybe Ms. Ariema could notify the businesses that way, but I do fully support notifying them.
Well, I believe if they are going to be notified by their representative on the chamber level, so if that doesn't happen, I will support all of the people.
Okay. The only problem is that I don't have a list of those businesses. I don't have just general list. I have who likes,
Gene Gennady is going to do that on behalf of the chamber.
but not every member of the chamber.
Well, he also said that. We had other discussions after that.
Somebody had a list of all the businesses I can notify. We don't maintain that list.
Perhaps what we can at least do is any business that currently has one of these signs up, I'd be happy to personally deliver it to them. Mayor, I'll go with you if you want, or with Mr. Gennady, whatever we got to do to just make sure they are made aware.
Notifications.
I know that the fire department goes out and does their inspections. Maybe they have a list that, you can ask for. Because they go to every business and they inspect for fire hydrants.
Thank you. Okay. Roll call, Ms. Ariana.
Councilwoman Kumisar. Aye. Councilman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Fisickelli. Councilman Barnes.
No.
And Council President Bieber.
Aye.
Ms. Ariana, please read ordinance 17-13 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. Bond ordinance to authorize the making various public improvements in Bond and for the borough of Berwick in the county of Union, state of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $432,000, pay the cost thereof, to appropriate various grants, make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds, to finance the appropriation, to rise the issuance of bond anticipation notes, in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
Do we have any correspondence on this ordinance, Ms. Ariana?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone wish to be heard concerning ordinance 17-13? Please step to the microphone.
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Bruce Patterson, 225 Land. I see we're actually going to be bonding. Could somebody tell us how much bond we actually are incurred at this point, including this? Is that possible?
I think we're not voting.
I believe it was about 250 to 275,000 grams. Might have it.
No.
Total bond. How much is the town?
Oh, the entire town.
Yeah, 3 point something.
Would you accept an email on there if you don't have to?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on the ordinance 17-13?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 17-13?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Ms. Ariana.
Councilwoman Blumenstock.
Aye.
Councilman Lucero.
Yes.
Councilman Nazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Pepitzelli.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Council President Tedesco.
Aye.
Ms. Ariema, please read ordinance 17-14 by title only.
Yes, Mayor, an ordinance of the Borough of County of New Jersey, approving the application for a long-term tax exemption and authorizing the execution of a financial agreement with South Avenue Urban Renewal LLC.
Do you have any correspondence concerning this ordinance?
Yes, Mayor. 7717 Forest Corbin, had a financial impact on the Borough of South Avenue developer.
The next is, does anyone wish to be heard concerning ordinance 17-14? Before we do that, I'd like to have William Northgate, our redevelopment attorney, come forward, and Jennifer Edwards, our Acadia Financial Group, to give us a presentation.
It's okay if we do it from here, Mayor? You want
Yes,
to say something?
that'd be
Okay, fine.
What I can hear you.
Okay, what I think would make the most sense is I'll go over the agreement with you. There are some specific financial terms that Acacia brought in to analyze, and Jen prepared a couple of quick slides just to go over those. Excuse me, those numbers. This is, as you're aware, this is the final piece of the South Avenue redevelopment puzzle. This is what is called the financial agreement, which is what the ordinance that's before you is authorizing a long-term tax exemption and approving the form of this financial agreement, which has been negotiated now over quite a few months. The idea with the financial agreement is that they will not pay conventional taxes, but they will pay an annual service charge in lieu of those taxes. You often hear the term PILOT, payment in lieu of tax, is the acronym. The agreement is for a 30-year period. There is the annual service charge will be determined based on annual gross revenue. That annual gross revenue, you don't have to take the redeveloper's word for it as to what their annual gross revenue is. That will be part of an audit that will be provided to you each year. The initial period will have an estimated annual service charge based on what they expect their annual gross revenue would be. There would be a true-up after that. And then, if they overpaid, then it would be a credit in year 2. If they underpaid, then they would have to make up the difference. And that is how it would go forward. When I was leaving the meeting last time when this ordinance was introduced, one of your residents asked me about the land tax credit. And I explained that to your resident, and let me explain it to you. I know most of you are familiar with it by now, but what happens with the land tax, the tax exemption, if you will, is on the improvements. It's not on the land. And we're all aware in our tax bills you have what your assessed value is, and your assessed value is 2 numbers. It is the value of the improvement and the value of the land. The tax exemption here is only on the improvement, so they will still pay a land tax. So in year 1, they will pay the land tax, and they will pay the annual service charge. In year 2, they will pay the land tax, they will pay the annual service charge, but they'll get a credit for the land taxes that were paid in year 1. So basically, the land tax credit rolls forward for the 30 years. Eventually, you run out of the agreement before you run out of credits. I'm sorry, you run out of credits before you run out of the agreement. So the land tax that they pay in year 30, there is no credit in year 31. It's incremental. It's really, I wouldn't tell you it's a value to the borough because it really is just basically incremental. Land taxes are split as they normally are. However, whatever your current split is between the Board of Education, the county, and the borough, and that would continue along as it always has. As I said, the agreement will run for 30 years. And Jen will take you through the numbers, but the annual gross revenue for the first 15 years will be 10% of whatever that annual gross revenue is. And annual gross revenue, to be clear, is every nickel they make. It is not just rent. It is if they charge a pet fee, if they charge for parking, if they charge for whatever they charge for, whatever revenue the urban renewal entity receives, they pay the annual gross revenue on that. So if it's $50 a month to have a pet, $5 of that comes to the borough. And just to be clear, of that, whatever the number is received, 5% pursuant to the long-term tax exemption law goes to the county. So for the first 15 years, you'll be 10%. Years 16 through 25 will be 11% of annual gross revenue, and years 26 through 30 will be 12% of annual gross revenue. The agreement, just to clarify, in case there's any questions either among council or in the public, the agreement talks about it shall be the greater of, and then it lists 3 variables. Candidly, the variables shouldn't come into play except for perhaps very late in the agreement. The first variable is annual gross revenue. The second is minimum annual service charge. Minimum annual service charge is a defined term both in the agreement and in the law. Minimum annual service charge is you have to pay at least what the taxes were in the last full year the property was taxed. So the idea being you don't want a redevelopment project that produces less revenue than a unredeveloped area, if I could coin a term there. So that would be the B, and then the C would be the percentage of real property taxes otherwise due on the value of the improvements as set forth in this agreement. Statute requires a gradation and a look back, if you will. Years up to year 15, there is no look back, it's just whatever the AGR the agreed upon percentage, which is 10% in this case. And then as you get into the next, let me just flip to make sure I've got the numbers right here. 16 through 20, you would look back at what conventional taxes would be, and the annual service charge has to be at least 20% of what the conventional taxes would be. So if for whatever reason the annual gross revenue and conventional taxes get separated somehow, which candidly I haven't seen in the 20 years or so I've been doing this, gets so far apart, there is if you will, a clawback provision. So if the conventional taxes would have been greater than 20% of the AGR that you're getting, then you would get the 20%. So there's a minimum there. You move into the next stage of years 22 through 27, and that's a 40%. Years 28 and 29 is 60%, and then year 30 would be 80%. The only time I've seen it on, and it's been on projections, I haven't been practicing law long enough to see a full 30-year tax exemption agreement burn out yet, but the only time the projections that Acacia and other financial advisors do is in that final 80%. Is sometimes there'll be a crossover, but that would only come in year 30. Excuse me. The annual service charge commences when the project is complete, and that is either a TCO or a CO. Once the project starts to generate income, then that's when the annual service charge would kick in. Until that time, they would pay whatever the current taxes are. And just the point that Mr. Renaud wanted me to make sure I made, both as we were going through this and for our purposes here, the property owner has agreed that the tax appeals that were pending will be withdrawn as part of the overall consideration for the long-term tax exemption. So that is one variable you don't have to deal with as you go forward. The agreement is terminable at will by the redeveloper. So if for whatever reason they find that AGR is grossly outperforming the whatever conventional taxes would be, they can terminate it, but then they would just pay conventional taxes. Again, I've never seen it, but it's the law allows them that flexibility. Okay. Acacia was brought in to evaluate. One of the questions that I saw come up as we were leading into tonight was, what the impact would be on the borough. Acacia wasn't brought in to analyze that. It kind of set up a false a false hypothesis, if you will. The hypothesis is that, and we have done it, and I'm sure Acacia's done it, and certainly my firm has participated in, when a municipality is determining whether to do a long-term tax exemption, whether to do a redevelopment agreement, or a redevelopment plan, they will analyze, what is the impact on the community going to be? What is how does this all play out? The conundrum you had here was that there was going to be residential housing on that site. The only issue, the only ability, the only control that the council had was trying to limit the number of units that it would be. So Acacia wasn't asked to analyze, well, what would the cost be for services, those types of things, because candidly, you would need to really fully analyze, you would need to figure out what a court would have done if you had rejected the idea of redevelopment and, if you will, rolled the dice on the affordable housing question. You had made that decision probably well before I was hired that rolling the dice was probably not a good idea. In all likelihood, without the powers of redevelopment, the economics of the deal are such that the number of units that would have to be on that site would have been a multiple of what is here now. And accordingly, I just want to be clear that when we got that question, Acacia can't answer that question because they weren't asked to do it, and B, they would need data that we don't have in the deal. There was a question that could not be answered. The question of, well, what if we don't do the deal? The downside to that question is not, would there be a warehouse over there? Would there be another place there? No, there wouldn't be. It is one of your last undeveloped sites. And the affordable housing requirements were such that you were going to have residential housing there. And again, the idea was just to control that as best you could in terms of the number. And the way to do that is to make a deal that makes sense both for the developer and for the borough. And that is where the long-term tax exemption law comes in, because you can take a deal that is thin in terms of return on investment and make it work, or a deal that's actually not financeable, and make it work through the mechanism of long-term tax exemption. So I wanted to just clarify that one issue that I saw come up, just because I'm sure it was on the council's mind. The agreement runs for 30 years from the date of completion, from the date when the annual service charge starts, or 35 years from execution, whichever is earlier. But the exemption itself will only last for 30 years. So if it takes them 2 years to get the project built, they would have 30 years on the exemption. If it takes them 7 years to get the project built, they would have 28 years on the exemption. It can't exceed the 35-year period. With that, I guess I would turn it over to Jennifer to just kind of walk you through some of the economics that Acacia found and why we think that the balance that you have to do here is you want to get as much money into the borough as you can and still have a deal that works, and still have a deal that's financeable. And that's what Acacia analyzed based on the application that Russo filed and the information available, and then applying that to their analysis. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Good evening. First, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the density. Good evening, Jen Edwards. I wanted to just briefly touch on our first look at the numbers before I start talking about the actual financial agreement. When Acacia was brought in, we were first tasked to look at the density of the project and where the project stood as far as market units and units to be rented out. We did look at those pro formas. We saw that the internal rate of returns for the developer were very tight. Construction costs were very conservative, they were very aggressive. Sorry, opposite. But their borrowing rate was very aggressive as well for when they go out for their loans. So any increase in their borrowing rate was going to further diminish their returns if they weren't able to achieve that borrowing rate. In turn, we did, with Redevelopment Council, go back to the developer and ask them they were able to come back with a reduced density project which further reduced their returns on investment. And that is the project that you have in front of you, which is 298 total project units, which has 268 market rate units and 30 co-units involved. It also had a reduced parking scope, and that was one of the ways the developer was able to reduce the density, was they reduced the amount of on-site parking that they were able to offer. With that, the internal rate of return was reduced and squeezed even further. With the June 5th long-term tax exemption application, there were some additional changes in the pro forma, which allowed us to go back to the developer again and ask for some changes in the financial agreement, which I'll go over. Because the developer has now, they have the leeway within the redevelopment agreement to go up to about 18,000 in retail space. They do show in their current performance that they're increasing that retail space, and their parking spaces from when we originally discussed reducing the density went from about 423 parking spaces to 469 spaces. So when we were looking at the density, the internal rate of return gets squeezed, but then now with the new application, there was a little bit more room in there for the borough to adjust the financial agreement. I'm going to stand up because the clicker's not working, so there's no way for me to turn the slides. So I'm going to be a little bit repetitive because Bill went over many of the aspects of the financial agreement, which I have up here. But just to reiterate what Bill said, the annual service charge, you must pay 5% to the county. The developer has to pay the land taxes, and then they're entitled to that land tax credit the following year. The ASC is always annually calculated as the greater of really three things: the amount of total land taxes in the last full year of the properties, or the percentage of annual gross revenue as laid out in these three terms: 10% for years 1 through 15, 11% for years 16 through 25, and 12% of annual gross revenues from 26 to 30. The third test, as Bill mentioned, is the staged adjustments. For the first 15 years, it's as shown on the previous page. It's the greater of those two formulas. Going forward, there's staged adjustments. Years 16 through 21, if it's the greater amount of what you saw on the previous page, or 20% of the amount of taxes that would have been paid. So if you reach year 16 and the tax amount would be higher, the borough is entitled to get that higher payment in those years. Again, at stage 3, moves in years 22 to 27, which then that increases to 40%. Stage 4, 28 to 29, increases to 60. And then the final test in year 30, you need to be at 80% of the full tax on the property. This is just a snapshot of the estimated revenues to the borough. You'll see the staged percentages of annual gross revenues on the left. The estimated total annual service charge here. So in year 1, based on our projections and the developer's pro formas, the ASC would be approximately $881,000 as compared to the current land tax of approximately $109,000.
Could they make that bigger? Could you like make it hard to see it?
Shoot it like that. Is that better? In the first year? There's no way to really make it bigger without, I can scoot around. So you can focus on the first year that you would be looking at receiving $881,000. This test right here is an annual calculation to say whether you're going to get the pilot amount, which is the 10% of annual gross revenues, or whether it meets the test. As noted on the previous page, the first 15 years is 0%, so it always goes to the 10% of annual gross revenues in those first 15 years. The land tax credit then gets applied. and you end up with $772,000 paid to the borough, less 5% to the county, and then the borough is looking to get about $730,000 in the first year under the pilot, as opposed to regular taxes. You can move this down. I'll move it down just to give you an idea here. There's assumptions in here for increases in taxes as well, so that it continues to show if there's any incremental increase in the tax rate. That gets formulated in and calculated annually to see whether you meet the pilot test or the assess test. In this case, the projected assessments come down to year 28, where you start meeting the test that you get to the percentage of full taxation. So in these years, you'd be looking to get 60% of the full taxes, and when you get to the final year, it's estimated that you'd be at 80% at this point. You'd actually, instead of getting the 12% of annual gross revenues, you'd be getting the pilot, the actual 80% of full taxes, 2.9 million. So just to summarize, these projections show that, oops, over the 30-year term, you're looking at about $32.8 million through the financial agreement over a 30-year period. Originally, the previous financial agreement, prior to introduction, had 10% across the board for the 30 years, still with all the minimum requirements and assessed valuation percentages as well. This change to the financial agreement, increasing the 11 and 12%, boosted this number by about 1.8 million to the borough. That was, I guess we can take any questions. I don't know how you want to.
Yeah, that was nothing.
Okay.
Question. Thank you. At this point, does anyone wish to be heard concerning ordinance 17-14? You step to the microphone, state your name and address. Comments for 3 minutes, please.
Mayor, I'll vote for you. But it's not the end of the presentation.
Yes. Mary Ann Ketzer, 350 Hickory Avenue. So I have a question. While they're building, what is the tax revenue that's coming in now from that project? What we currently get in sound?
Whatever you're getting, you will continue to get, and as the assessment goes up.
There you're saying just land, not the improvements.
No. This starts in year 2020, so that's assuming that they're fully built out.
Right.
So between now and 2020, you'll get whatever they are currently paying, and I'm sorry, I don't know the number at the top of my head.
236,000.
So who's paying that?
They are.
They are.
Yes, the redeveloper continues to pay.
So there should be no surprises while the construction's going on, and suddenly the budget has a hit because there's $30,000 or $20,000 that's disappeared until the project is done.
No, right.
And is the 30-year thing, is that a standard thing? As I know,
Yes.
developers standardly look for this. I know there's a big project in Moselle going on, and they're talking about something in Frankfurt.
The 30 years is pretty standard. Is occasionally they do it for shorter periods of time, but it's the problem for redevelopers. It's my job to try and squeeze as much out of it as I can. Their initial period, the first 10 to 12 years is a stabilization. They don't really start to make money. So if you cut them off on the exemption, then it really doesn't pay for them to invest the money. The return on investment was pretty thin here in the first 10, 12 years, I believe it was.
What happens if they sell it?
It has to be continued. If they sell it to if they sell it to something other than an urban renewal entity, then the tax exemption goes away, which basically guarantees they will not. Generally, what would happen is they would just sell the urban renewal entity itself. Would be sold to a different holding company, if you will. Yeah, these are all set up as single-purpose entities. They have to be by statute. You can't have one urban renewal entity can't own 2 projects. They have to own individual projects. So basically what you would do is you would sell the stock in that limited liability corporation, which most of them are LLCs.
And what kind of retail are they expecting to put?
I don't know if they've gotten that far into it. It's basically whatever the market can bear. The redevelopment plan would govern.
And the apartments or whatever, like one bedroom, two bedroom?
They're a mix of one. Yeah, they're a mix of 1 and 2s. There's a if I remember correctly, and Mr. Renaud will remind me, there are 30 affordable units, and some of those are 3s. Only the affordable are 3 bedrooms. And everything else is 1s and 2s.
Yeah, the affordable ones we wouldn't.
They have to be, yeah. That's the way you get the affordable housing advocate to sign off on the deal that was struck.
Right, and how, does that meet what we need to, what's required for the affordable care?
It's a part of it, not all of it.
Part of it, some of it. And so, how are we meeting the rest of it, or we don't have to worry about that right now?
Mr. Renaud, can you address that?
That aspect has been settled. So there's a settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing Center that the court has approved, that we will be in compliance. We had a preliminary hearing, we have a final hearing in, I want to say September, maybe October now, which will give us a judgment of compliance and repose, but the plan that we have submitted has met the constitutional affordable housing requirements.
Does this mean that some other entity is absorbing some of what they think we should have, or the percentage that we should have? Just saying,
yes, there are.
court judgment. Because there are fines if you don't meet.
Well, actually, there aren't fines, but there are consequences, and all of the borough's obligation is not being met in this project. Remember, and I've said this many times, but I'll repeat it: the borough has no obligation to actually construct affordable housing. We only have the obligation to zone so that there is the potential for development of affordable housing. So there are other sites where inclusionary developments will be allowed.
I guess I'm just asking, are we in compliance?
Yes is the answer. I apologize if I didn't convey that in the beginning. Yes, we have a settlement that the court has provisionally approved of, and it's subject to a hearing which will be held in, as I said, either September or October, I forget now right off the top of my head. But the result of that hearing, assuming that we adopt everything that we're supposed to adopt, which we will do, we will get a judgment of compliance and repose. That means the court has found that the Borough of Garwood is in compliance. So yes, the answer to your question is yes.
And I'm sure the developer is going to have something to do with traffic and whatever the road is.
It all comes up on the site plan approval.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just to briefly speak to the retail question, Mr. Northwick, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the redevelopment plan itself, on page 7 that I'm looking at, there were a number of uses that were prohibited.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have the plan in front of me. I assume there were, but I didn't want to be speaking solely from memory and get it wrong, so.
Sure,
Yeah.
so that plan is on our website, but just to name a few, for example, barber shops, tattoo and body piercing, nail salons are prohibited.
Right. Thank you.
Just to address the last one that spoke, pretty much Fair Share Housing, they come up with a new quota every 10 years. I spoke to them personally, so basically this meets the quota, although not what I would have taken, it should have been 13%. They made a deal before it got to council. So every 10 years, Fair Share Housing will come up with another amount that we will be required to do. So, Fair Share, yeah, color, that's every 10 years.
Fair Share Housing is the company that sued us.
Right, but I mean, color, excuse me. Yeah, it's colors. So every 10 years, they will come out with a new requirement for every 10 years.
Anyone else like to come to the microphone, please?
Hi, Arlene Yanagasha, 211 Cedar Street. So I have a question on that land tax, where you guys said that it has to be one full year of taxes. How is that going to, we have to do a reevaluation by 2020? What if that reevaluation assesses that that land tax has to be more? Is it frozen?
No, whatever they pay, it just rolls. So it's whatever they, so if what they pay in year 1, they get a credit in year 2. If they pay in year 11, they get a credit in year 12. So whatever the land tax is in the prior year, they get a credit for it.
So they will, if they have to pay more taxes on it, that's based on that reevaluation?
On the land, just on the land. It's not on the assessment, it's not on the
So it's going to
improvement.
flow with everyone else's,
Exactly.
they have to get it reevaluated.
If it comes out different, I mean, it's certainly not going to come out exactly the same, but in a revaluation, the taxes do not necessarily change. I mean, they'll never be exactly the same, but if the current ratio of property assessed to true value is equal to what the townwide ratio of assessed to true value is, then theoretically, the assessment would increase probably by 3.5 times or so, but the taxes would remain the same.
Okay, so I understand that part.
And the other thing, I wouldn't get hung up on the land taxes, only because the land taxes, as Bill said several times, and it's a concept I don't think everybody is getting, is the land taxes are a credit against the pilot payment. So, in other words, if your land taxes went down and everything else remained the same, your pilot payment is going to go up and vice versa. So it doesn't really matter much. It matters a little. Not much.
Okay.
Not enough to worry about.
Okay, that's fine. So this additional revenue to Garwood, okay, that's money coming in. Now, the projected expenses, because we're building up, what's going to be the profit margin to Garwood? Like, what's the percentage on average? No, but obviously if you're going to have 200, if you have 298 units, right? So there's going to be children, there are going to be other people. You're going to need more police. You're going to need more school space or whatever the case is. Those were accounted for, correct?
No, that's what I was saying before. That's there's a false hypothesis in the question because it assumes that the question before the council was going to be go or no go. That was not, however, that was not the question for the council. The question before the council was control it to a certain level of density or roll the dice and let the court determine what the density would be. So there was never an analysis done of what the incremental increase might be in terms of expenses.
So could there be a loss to Garwood if there's more expenses than the money coming in?
Conceivably, there could be, but but again, you're getting back to, so take your question to the next step. The next step is let's turn this down. Let's vote no on this, right? Is that where you're going? And then if you go there, understand that voting no on this blows up the affordable housing settlement, the compliance that Mr. Renage just talked about, and now a judge in Elizabeth will tell you how many units are going to go there, but I can guarantee you it will not be 298. It will be a multiple of that.
No, I'm not saying no to it. What I'm saying is what protection does Garwood have if the expenses that incur because we had to build these units brings us a loss?
None. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Because you're again assuming that you can guard against that you can take a position that would make sure that Garwood doesn't lose money on this. And the reality is the Supreme Court of New Jersey has decided that it doesn't matter, that you have to take what is called a fair share of housing, and you have to pay for it regardless. So the only question here is, are you going to have 298, or are you going to have 400, or 500, or 600? That's really the only question.
The 298 is 260 market-based rental
Yes,
units.
268 more.
So those will basically cover, I mean, those are market, those are like, if you're just a regular person,
Yep,
whatever.
exactly.
30 units is only affordable.
Right.
I mean, I don't see a major effect of 30
Right,
versus 298
exactly.
affordable.
But understand that if you reject the settlement, then the affordable number will go up.
I'm not rejecting, no, I'm not rejecting the settlement. What I'm trying to understand is the 298 units being built and the families that go in there.
Mhm.
Okay, it is going to put some more police on board, more school, more expenses at the end of the day. I'm just trying to figure out, is this revenue number, the percentage that has to be utilized and everything, is it enough to cover that we will never hit a loss? And if you're, and you told me, you're saying that there is no protection. So how do we build protection for that loss? Because then that will, like, for me, if we get in a loss, my first solution is I have to move out.
Right. And
So that's what I'm just trying to figure out.
yes, it's an excellent question. A number of residents have asked this question. And it's really not one for Mr. Northgrave to answer. It's more up to the council, this year's council, and really future council's decision on how to spend this money. Yes, although the revenue to the borough will go up significantly, as you can see here, about $650,000 more than what that property is currently bringing in. You're right, absolutely, there will be expenses, but it's up to those councils to determine how many cops do we add. For example, in the past, Garwood has had a higher population than we do today, but we have more police on our police force than we did then. So there is a certain natural escalation over time that towns face for different reasons. But also, too, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what that cost would be. For example, I know you're getting to the point of school-age children, which I know has been a concern. Right now, the project's projected to bring in 28 school-age children. So let's just call it 30 for number's sake. Although the average cost per student is about $11,000 per year, it's not exact to say 11,000 times 30 will be the cost of those students because, for example, you might be able to 1 year add a couple students to one grade level, but not cause the need to hire an additional teacher. But sometimes, because there are a certain number of students going to that next grade level, they do have to add a teacher. So those factors will come into play, and I believe they really will come into play in Garwood no matter what. It's something, especially the Board of Education, always has to work on with the staffing and making sure they're providing a good student to teacher ratio. So it's really difficult to answer your question only because I think it really depends on council decisions on how to spend the money. And I'll tell you, for one, I want this to be a net positive to Garwood. I don't look at this and say, wow, we're getting $650,000, where can we go spend it? It's, we have to spend sometimes and do it so that we can keep a level of service that the residents deserve, but we also don't need to go on a shopping spree just because the redevelopment project came in. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. So it brings another question. Do you know how quickly these units will be rented? Like, does the entity, have they said, okay, we think in year one, 10% of the units are going to be filled, year two, 20, 30, so do you have those kind of numbers?
My understanding is they're building it as one phase, so it would be, we projected that it would be completed by 2020. So it would, between you have a demolition, remediation, construction. So it's going to take, and they still have to go through the balance of the governmental approval process. So I don't think they'll be coming online 100 units, 100 units, 100 units. I think they'll be coming online. If they do, it will be 100 units in 1 month, 100 units the next month, and 100 units in the final month.
So they're thinking that once it's completed and built, that they could possibly fill the 298 units in 3 months?
They're absolutely betting on that. Yeah, they wouldn't be investing their money. If they thought they were going to have vacancies, their money would be in a CD somewhere.
So then that brings back to my question, is that if they're going to fill 298 units in the first 3 months, then how are we going to, I would have to think that 298, you have to stack the school. So like, that's, so then, the timing is within this quick,
We are,
right? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
No, just understand that the majority of the project is 1 and 2 bedrooms. You're going to have very, very few, if any, school-age kids coming out of those bedrooms.
Take out
So
the
it's
school.
30.
Take out the school. Just, I mean,
Okay.
I'm just talking about, I'm just talking about services throughout the town.
Understood.
That's- I mean, if you're telling me 298 units are gonna be filled within, let's see, 3 months, because that's what the entity is counting on, the units being filled has to have services. You're not gonna tell me that in 3 months we have a population, I don't know what 298 units is gonna work. How many people? What was the? Okay, so 500 people are about to just come in 3 months. And if, let's say they only have 5 police officers for 4,300 people now, you're gonna tell me they're not gonna add X number of costs to cover that? Like, this is where I'm just trying to
Yeah.
find.
As
a council
I'm
member
tell you,
said-
it's not necessarily a fact that you're gonna hire more police officers. I will tell you.
I guess, I think
I mean,
maybe
that's-
I'm being
I'm not-
hung up on specifics of the
it's not-
expenses. There will definitely 100% be more expenses when you add an additional 500 people. That's a fact, right?
Can I just, let me try to maybe attack it a different way and try to clarify the point. So, let's assume that this does not get approved, that the financial agreement does not get approved. That, your hypothesis is that there then will not be additional people coming to Garwood, correct? That we won't have to pay for it.
I'm not disagreeing to the agreement.
No, stay with me, but stay with me, just stay with me on the hypothesis. So, if you think that, if you're saying that if we don't approve this agreement, these people won't come, and therefore there won't be additional costs, correct?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I know this agreement has to go through. I know that part.
Okay.
But what I'm asking is, these numbers that you projected, would you also consider, could there be a loss to Garwood? And if there's a loss to Garwood, how are the citizens right now protected from that? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, and I think that's what the council president was trying to answer for you.
And then, she answered it, but then the way I saw that is that, okay, maybe it's gonna be in year 1, not all units will be filled. Okay, year 2, there'll be time to get it filled, but what you just said is that all 300 units are gonna get filled quickly.
But for a moment, we're forgetting there's 4 years of being built, so the council, as the councilwoman said, we have time to project what the needs may be of that new facility. 4 years, it takes 4 years to build the project.
but I think what Mr. Northgrave is trying to say is, on one hand, we are looking at the 298 right now. On the other hand, we could have been looking at 400 dictated to us from Elizabeth from the courts. So what he's trying to say is like population either way, but what I'm just saying is it really is all up to that council 4 years from now to say, okay, the population is now this redevelopment is built, the police chief comes to the council and says, I need more manpower because the overtime is going up, and you make those government decisions.
I'm totally not arguing that you reduce the cap. What I'm arguing is the timing, okay? Because they're saying in 3 months, we're gonna fill up 298 units, okay? So that's 3 months' time. Hiring people doesn't take 3 months.
No, it's 3 months, 3 years from now.
That's right. It doesn't happen next week. It has to-
I'm sorry.
So
Mine? I think your points are really valid, and I appreciate that, because obviously, this is something that we're gonna work on, to make sure, to the best of our ability, to make sure that we can make sure that we're not going to lose money on this. But in the interest, I think it's important to put in context what Mr. Northgrave is saying, is that because we're in a very difficult situation, we're between a rock and a hard place, we kind of have to go through this agreement, but even though we're going through this agreement, of course, we are going to work really hard to make sure that the Garwood residents that are here today and now are going to be able to stay. That's what we're going to work towards. But there's no 100% guaranteed answers to all of your questions, but we're going to work towards that goal. So I just want to clarify.
So my point is what I'm saying is that maybe in this agreement, there should be some clause that says, hey, Garwood should never come into a loss because of this project. That's what I'm basically trying to get at. It's just a protection to us.
It's a good
A
question. We
protection
actually
to the
asked.
residents of.
And,
We actually asked
but yeah, but understand that part of the whole analysis here was return on investment for the redeveloper. Now, I understand and I don't expect you to care about whether or not they make a decent return, stay with me a second, whether they make a decent return on their investment. But if we built in a provision that said, well, we could build it in all we want, they would reject it without, and they would walk away and again, put their money in a CD somewhere. So you would wind up with, somebody's gonna build there, and they're going to make they're gonna make the amount of money needed to support the investment. So if there has to be a clause that says if the cost to Garwood go up, they have to kick in, they can't predict what their return on investment is going to be, and they're going to walk away, or they're going to leave here, they're going to leave this room and go to another room in Elizabeth and have a deal that's going to make economic sense for them. I understand your concern, but there's no way that would make economic sense for them.
Okay, so then I'll put myself in the shoes of the redeveloper. If I'm a redeveloper and the town goes to crap because of this project, then my value of my property goes down too. So
Understood.
that's what I'm saying. I understand the redeveloper side and I understand Garwood side, so I still think there should be some kind of clause in there saying that, hey, let's just figure a balance out here so no one's at a loss.
I understand your point. We can't get there. I understand your point, but we can't get there.
Can I say something? That was like one of the best questions I've seen asked at any of these meetings. Because basically, from my point of view, this is going to be this will be a break even for Garwood. And Mr. Northgrave, with all due respect, they approved 350 units on 15 acres in Cranford. I believe Garwood had a better shot of getting something a little bit less, not making everybody scared witless that it's going to be 400 or 500 units. We've got 5 acres, they have 15. That's what the board approved over there. They bought the property back, and that's what happened. But I'm looking at all these figures. I've been looking at this stuff for over 3 years, almost 4 years already. And, you know, basically, we're going to end up with so much stuff here, and it's not going to be a net gain, I don't believe, to Garwood. And you're absolutely right. Like I said, that's the best question I've seen asked in all these years, because nobody was taking into consideration what we're going to have to pay. Because basically, when you do a pilot, the rest of the taxpayers are left holding the bag. That's exactly what happens. They're left with everything. That's what happens. And like I said, thank you very much for that question.
You work for our town, right? Not the entity, do you?
I work.
You were okay.
I was on our team.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Go right ahead, sir.
Hi,
Name and address, please.
my name is Carl Corrigan, and 430 Union Street, and I'm the publisher of the West Coast Leisure too. Excuse me, I just had a dentist brush, so I talk a little funny. This lady hit the question right on the head, the essence of the question. When is somebody going to look at this project from the point of view of what is the impact on Garwood? What is the impact on the property owner? We started as a newspaper a couple years ago looking at this question for Garwood. In fact, we have a website, timesnj.com, where a year ago we answered the question based upon the data at the time, which is essentially what it is now, that said this project needed to earn $2.5 million for Garwood to break even. This is showing the generous contractor, developer, giving us $800,000. And all this is worried about is the developer's return on investment. I don't really care what the developer's return on investment is. I couldn't care less. So we need, and for the last year, and I provided all this information to the mayor and council, and consistently asked the question, both in the newspaper and through memorandum to the council, what is the impact on the resident and property owner to Garwood? And our model, which we have published, is available for anyone to look at, and we don't hide behind the banner that's saying it's meaningless to even ask the question. It's absolutely the only question that's important. And so I commend this lady for having the foresight, and I hope the council takes this to heart and don't stick us like, take a look at Jersey City and pilot payments, or Hoboken on pilot payments. They have bankrupt their whole towns because of pilot. They have no money for the school system. And by the way, there are 470 kids in the school system in Garwood, and it costs $18,000 per student in current day dollars to educate them, which means that just that figure alone would be $300,000 if this development occurred. So I implore you to think of the citizens of Garwood, not about the return on investment of the damn developer. I'm done.
Rich McCormick, 101 Garwood. Unlike the professionals over here, I don't view numbers all day. But I'm here as a 30-year plus concerned citizen of Garwood. So I did a little research myself, so I'd like to read what I have here. And it says, according to the proposal, can everybody hear me? Good. According to the proposal, the developer is being rewarded for cleaning up the property by allowing him to fulfill only 10% of affordable housing to the obligation of Garwood. This decision is being forced upon to have build even more housing. So why are we rewarding him? Why? This is a brownfield property, meaning the state. Us, the taxpayer. We will pay for 75% of this cleanup. This is a pilot union. Us, the taxpayer, will pay the difference in taxes. He will get tax amendments and incentives. And in other words, he is being paid for the cleanup. We, the taxpayer, are paying for the cleanup while he is being rewarded for more properties in our already congested town. He could satisfy the affordable housing agreements, members of his council that promised to reduce the scale of the project. Could not have been promised, but instead, you added a second and a third to this project. You sit here and you insist that 52 units across the street, 113 down at the next proposal. We see what this is going through in the state, right next door in Cranford, Clark, and Westfield. We see the tide changing. We, the people, we're standing up. We know legislation may change in the next few months on mandates, which may be, why are you making this pass by October 30th, 1 week before the election? This is exactly why I look around the room tonight, and the vast majority of residents who did not bother to show up. We all know by now, this will plan out. Each will have your canned political response and not care what the residents think. But believe, no matter what you say, you cannot refute the facts. Number one, cleanup costs, they're paid by the taxpayer, not the builder. You promised to reduce the scale of this project, but instead, you added 2 more locations, totaling, as this young lady said, 462 units instead of the 315 proposed. You brag about how much money this will bring to us over 30 years, when the math tells us different. If this is $800,000 a year, just 40 students would consume that $800,000 to our school board, plus the roadworks, the resources on South Avenue. I know it's a county building, but we as a taxpayer, we still pay for that. Additional police. The average cost, whether directly hit town or county to the state, so you all know, we pay for it. This is the largest increase in population on scale to any town in Union County. If adding a large-scale apartment building to towns truly generates tons of revenues, then places in North, Plainfield, Camden, and Irvington would be overflowed with revenues. These projects and ideas have failed time and time again. Please don't sit here and tell us we have no choice. Mr. Russo said he would never sue Garber. So why would we allow this vast threat by local politicians to change the landscape of the place we love? All I ask is that you do the right thing. Do what you were voted to do. And that's putting the best interest, the future of Garber, ahead of your own agenda. You have a choice, and the only choice is to vote against this proposal. That will push forward the scale of this project. I'm not here to debate, to go back and forth, but we all know how this spin works. And you guys have made your mind up. And in my last voice, I would like to say that there's one council person sitting here that has fought the fort, and that's Miss Eileen Cooper. So the rest of this may go on deaf ears, but I stand here before you and tell you how I feel. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Anyone else?
Sure. Hi, Mike County, 212 4th Avenue. So I'm going to take an unpopular position here. I fully support the ordinance and the redevelopment in general. There's risk in this. The various documents that are put on the borough's website regarding the Russo plan, it makes sense. The council seems to have negotiated a deal that's advantageous to Garwood now and looks forward to a future that, honestly, it's not dominated by the post-industrial landscape that's out there. I'd like to quickly read an excerpt from the New Jersey State Controller's Programmatic Examination of Municipal Tax Abatements, published in 2010 and revised in 2013, specifically from the best practices section. Abatement should be granted only when necessary to attract development that otherwise would not occur. Now, this figure might be wrong, but it was $8 million for the estimate. I think I read it. Okay, so it was, I mean, that's a substantial sum. Right. Abatement terms should not be any more generous than is necessary to attract the development sought. So, Mr. Northbridge, in your, I guess, with your counsel, is this an aggressive abatement deal, or is this about right? What?
Yeah, I think it's a good deal for the town. It's I do my, when I negotiate these deals, I work side by side with FAs. We drill down on the numbers. If some of the deals can get done with more than 10%, and when they can, we negotiate it up. We were able to. Russo started at 10%, and sorry about that, and we were able to get more, as Jen indicated. But I think it's if there's no pilot here, they're not doing this deal.
Sure.
If the pilot isn't what it is, they're not doing the deal.
So with all the affordable housing mandates coming through, are pilots, and I guess
So the ROI that the pilot's going to help generate for the developer, are they getting competitive between towns now?
I think Jen agrees with me, but the ROI in the first 10 years, candidly, didn't make sense to either one of us. It was too low. Apparently the redeveloper's playing a longer game, building for the future. He's, the principal here is a fairly young guy, so I guess he's just, planning on building and holding.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's getting a lower ROI than if he dumped all this money into it. S&P 500 ETF.
And that's why I said I'm not sure it didn't make sense to us. And it was also some of the numbers. A lot of times we look at these deals, and it's when I first interviewed with the council and they were hiring me. Part of our expertise, part of my expertise, part of Acacia's expertise is looking at, really fat construction costs, really high lending rates. Because they can build a lot of fat in. And their construction costs we thought were too low. So they're aggressive on their construction costs, against their interest, and they're lending. They expect lending rates that we're not sure they're going to be able to. But I mean, they're all in. The risk is on them at this point, and so yeah. I mean, yes, I do think we looked at everything we could to try and see if there was a nugget we could shake loose, and candidly, it wasn't there.
That's awesome. And so. That also pulls, so one of the last criteria, a full cost benefit analysis should be completed for any potential tax abatement deal to ensure that all issues are considered and that expected outcomes are reasonably assured and worthwhile. Plain said, I think the outcomes of this project are worthwhile. I know there's been a couple of comparisons to Jersey City or Newark, but Jersey City and Newark were courting Goldman Sachs, they were courting UBS, they were courting all these financial services companies. They're creating Wall Street West. That's where the abatement problem happened. Now there's risk here, but Garwood is leveraging this pilot mechanism to rehabilitate its downtown and create some much needed housing with what seems to be a willing and able partner, or I guess as much can be an adversarial relationship. So yeah, a small portion of that housing is going to be affordable. So as a professionally, as a social worker, as a citizen, and a Garwood homeowner, I think that affordable housing has become such a bugbear and that it's just unconscionable in society as a whole. Especially when, according to the 2017 HUD income guidelines and the Census Bureau data for Garwood, over 1/3 of current Garwoodians would qualify for these units and their subsidies. I mean, you can go on HUD's website. I got a copy of it here if you want to look at it. A family of 4, that's $68,000 a year. I mean, you can't say you're changing the character of the town with affordable housing if, hey, guess what, half the renters here in this town are qualified. So broadly speaking, that's 1 out of every 3 people in this room. So just so people know, I worked in affordable housing for a really long time in Philadelphia before I moved up here. The largest consumers of affordable housing are seniors, single parents, domestic violence survivors, and most notably, adults with special needs, often living independently and appreciatively on fixed incomes right near their families. Look, I really hope you guys pass this. I think it's the right thing to do. I'm proud to live in a town where this is going to happen. And even when folks who need housing are included in the unit calculus. Now, Councilman Sarno, you're right. The judiciary should not be legislating. That's just bad business. But I think everybody up here agrees that. All right.
And over here.
Yeah. Right.
And unanimity in the room.
So my last point is that most of these units are targeted towards young professionals, a demographic that's more likely to rent than own, but guess what, when they do own, they tend to settle in the vicinity where they've been renting. Right? That data, of course, is really fresh. I'm a millennial too, hey, but you know what happens. Right? Look, I trust in the dedication of the council of Garwood. There's plenty of questions here, but also that you're going to work towards those, not necessarily an escape clause, but somehow, one last thing. There's enforcement in this pilot agreement, right? Is required. Like, what are the enforcement mechanisms?
To enforce what? To make them pay?
Yeah.
It's the same as taxes.
Okay.
They have, if they don't pay, the town owns the building.
Okay, great. Right. So that's all I got, but thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Jim Matthews, 335 Hazel Avenue. I just want to thank everyone for the work that they put in here. I think the point that Mr. Northbury was bringing up is crucial. The choice here is not between this project and no project. It's between this project and the project that will be imposed upon us from Elizabeth. And this is, I think, probably the least worst deal that you can vote for. And you know, in that regard, I think that there should be reluctant support of it. Speaking from personal experience, I'd like to thank Councilman Sarno in particular on this. Something I wish I had done with the athletic field when I sat where you did, which is that you moved beyond simple opposition to it and you got involved in the nitty-gritty. Had I got more involved in the negotiation of the athletic field, possibly, I don't know, possibly we wouldn't have a field house that's barricaded and can't be used now. I think I got caught up in my own opposition to that project, did not move on to actually getting my hands dirty and saying, well, now what are the particulars? And I think you did a great job, I think you did in really trying to get the best revenue that you can from this project. The fault here lies, I think, in Trenton, and I think that everyone claims to be against COA. But all those politicians who do nothing about this year after year after year, 95% or more of them will be reelected, as well as a new governor who will be bent on absolutely doing nothing about this. So this is, as long as New Jersey chooses to do affordable housing by litigation, this will be the scenario that local governments will be in time and time and time and time again. So I think that it's important sometimes to swallow a bad deal, move beyond opposition to it, do as Councilman Sarno did, get involved in getting the best deal or a better deal for the borough. And I think that's really kind of, you know, what it is you need to do. I think this has to be done. There's really no other choice. It's a weird confluence of litigation and democracy here, and litigation in New Jersey seems to trump that every time, and that's unfortunate. So, you know, reluctantly, I think you did a good job, and I think there's really no other choice as a responsible legislator than to vote for this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Patterson? I wouldn't get too comfortable, Mr. Patterson. We're being polite.
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Bruce Patterson, 325 Old Avenue. I stand here, I come to all meetings, and yes, the dominoes have been falling one by one, where it gets to a point where, as Mr. Matthews says, you know, suddenly you don't have any choice. But actually, the choice you do have is possibly true, but you got to re-look at it. And I've been looking at all the financial numbers, and I don't know if you guys have. Like I was through Sarno, at least he's given it a shot to make lemonade out of lemons, which I guess I have to thank you, Joe. You know, just give it a shot, because I haven't seen anybody really doing too much trying to make this the best deal possible. Everybody's just kind of old. But just going through, it is interesting that Arlene and Mr. Corbin brought up expenses and saying what are they, and yes, the council, I guess, has to legislate whatever expenses they are. But did you read the August 30th, 2016 letter from Russo with all his financial backup and his traffic studies and such? Has anybody really looked at this? Okay. Well, I mean, he went in depth in expenses. He actually explained the expenses as to what possibly the town would occur. And he's talking about the municipal revenues coming out of this project will be $822,000. And then he put forth after his professional study that probably the expenses that the municipality will occur is $771,000. Now 822 less 771 is $51,000. So after all is said and done, it looks like the municipality will gain $51,000. Now, is that really worth all this trouble that we've been going through? Looking at his expense calculation, I do find fault with the school student calculations. And Sarah brings up a good point that, you know, you can kind of slip students in tests and such. So, I mean, you know, looking at his expenses, he's saying, you know, we're going to gain $50,000. You know, maybe it's another $100,000 for the school calculation, but we're really looking at maybe the borough will gain $200,000. And the way it stands, that if this project wasn't even done, we would still be getting $200,000. So Eileen is right. I mean, you know, it's a break even as we look at it. However, the dominoes are falling, as we're all admitting. Just to move forward on this, and I don't know who's really checking numbers, if anybody's really asking people to check numbers, but again, I asked for the financial analysis, and it worked out where the total project is going to be $80,439,000. I don't know, I'm sure everybody saw this matrix, being that it was sent to you. Okay, again, did anybody ask questions about these numbers? Because one of them, the very top number, is actually called zero, division 0. Land, demo, and environmental. And Russo has a number for, and this is for phase 1, $11,453,000. That's $11.5 million. Well, that's a 5-acre property. If you take $11.5 million divided by 5.3 acres, you come out to about $2.2 million an acre, and that's all-in cost of remediation and the purchase of the property. Normally, all-in costs of acres, and I'm sure Mr. Northgrave can agree with this, is somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million. $2.2 million is a very strange number. Something is wrong with that. I would assume probably he's taken the whole cost of buying all that land, even the 2 acres across the street, and including it into that cost. Because if you really do the 7 acres, which is the 2 acres across the street, that comes out to about $1.6 million per acre. That's more palatable and more to an all-in cost of an acre of land. I'm not arguing about a pilot. We're pretty far along the process here, and I thank everybody for their work, but a little more work has to be done. One is to find out what this $11.5 million is, why he's coming out with $2.2 million. If it was really less than that, you'd probably be around $7.5 million, you know, 5 acres times 1.5 is about 7.5, so say $8 million. So that $3 million really shouldn't be down on the construction cost. Therefore, it would also then impact his rate of return, and therefore we could also increase our ACR, as you call it, the 10%. Talk about the ACR. The statutes that the legislature passed, they actually did also offer up to a 15% ACR, and as you see by this chart, we're actually going up to 12%. But you know, if you can go up to 15% because of this extra $3 million that for some reason he buried into these numbers that somebody should really check into, you'd be able to get a larger ACR cost of 10%. Right from the beginning, I mean 12% you probably could do, even higher than that, maybe up to 15%. Also the statutes mention about 2% of construction costs. You can make it as a tax evasion, as a revenue stream. And just talking numbers here, 2% of the construction cost, $80 million, 2%, you basically be getting some kind of revenue stream of $1.6 million, not the $880,000. If you did the 15% ACR instead of 10%, you'd actually be getting $1.3 million. At the last council meeting, I actually did ask, what would be the regular tax, property taxes, if you went the normal route versus this ACR or the pilot program? I did ask that question. Did anybody look into it? No, of course not. I didn't. God bless you. It's great that you sit there and make decisions without even making a call. So, but let's just look at regular property taxes. I mean, I already pointed out the 2% of construction costs is $1.6 million, the 15% type of pilot that you can go is $1.3 million. Regular property costs, if you're looking at it, is, and these are just rough numbers off the top of my head, but I would assume each unit can be assessed at about $175,000. Is that true, Mr. Northgrave? You say it's about $175,000?
I would have no way of guessing.
If you're going to be selling them,
I would have no way of guessing.
Okay. I don't want to put you on the ball, but about $175,000. We're talking units in Branford, don't put $300,000. But anyway,
$175,000.
The rentals though.
Yeah,
This
I know,
isn't
but
for sale.
if we were going to be doing property tax, they'd be assessed as.
No, they
such
wouldn't.
by value.
No, they wouldn't. They would go on an income basis.
Okay.
That would be, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't even guess at what it would go on an income basis to determine. And maybe Mr. Renaud can answer. I certainly can't answer how you would compute that. It goes into a whole bunch of different calculations. You have cap costs and all types of different things that go into it. It's wholly different
Not to
than.
muddy the water, though.
I can tell you how you could calculate it, although I couldn't calculate it myself, but I'd put you to sleep and we'd spend the next 2 hours.
It's just
doing it.
very rough, because I guess I'm not going to belabor the point.
You take the projected income, you subtract the projected expenses, and you capitalize the income, and that's how the value is determined for tax court purposes of residential apartment properties. That's it.
Okay, I'm not going to do it in my head.
No, and neither am I, because I don't know any of those numbers, and neither do you, because they're not available. That's right. They only be estimates, and particularly because of the fact that you're capitalizing a number, every mistake you make, it's compounded. So it's really not possible to accurately predict at this point.
All right, but it's something possibly the tax assessor would come up with a rough number.
Well,
That's belaboring
if
the
the
point.
tax assessor did, I mean, I could do the mathematics because I do that all the time for tax appeals, but you'd have to have actual numbers of what it is that these will actually rent for. I mean, I'm sure that the developer has some idea of what they think they're going to rent for, but I don't know what they're going to rent for 2 years from now. I don't know what exactly their operating expenses are going to be. I don't know what capitalization rate is going to be appropriate 2 or 3 years from now, which is really, I shouldn't say the biggest factor, but a very big factor in determining what value is ascribed to a rental residential property. So it's really hard to estimate it, and I agree with Mr. Nordgrave. You can't just pick a number because it's not going to be accurate.
Okay, we'll jump past that. But obviously, developer Russo, has plenty of experience. I mean, he mentioned about what the cost of the project will be. He also mentioned about rents being $1,600 to about $2,800, with the COA unit being around $900 on the average. So I mean, it seems like he's well aware of the numbers, and that's the trick. He's well aware of these numbers. Are we well aware of the numbers? No, we're not well aware, and that's what I'm pointing out. That actually some more work has to be done on this pilot. 10%, go up to 15%. I'm looking at a number of $2.2 million per acre, which seems way out of whack here. That really should be looked at carefully to really figure out if his total cost is that much and if he's getting a net return of 6.6, because it could actually be a lot higher than that. Just accepting numbers, thrown on paper is not good enough. I think you guys really should be doing your research. We elected you to actually do research and to look into it. Yes, you're supposed to work with the professional, but you're actually supposed to know what questions to ask them. They're not here just to tell you everything. You got to ask the right questions. This is Garvey. You know Garvey. They don't know Garvey. Just one more thing to point out. And this came with the financials too. I don't know what this really is, but this is a large matrix again. And there's a bottom line. He was talking about on the year 2024, there's a good possibility he's going to sell the project. 7 years from now, he's going to sell the project, and after making his 6 or 7 or 9% return on investment for the 7 years, then he's going to turn around possibly. I don't know what this matrix really is telling me, but possibly he's going to sell it. $38 million he will make as profit, and that's net of all the expenses and the interest, et cetera, et cetera. He actually has a number of $38 million. So I might have been Arlene asking, yes, will he sell it? I don't know, but there it is. He actually gave a number that he's going to profit $38 million. We gave him COA, we gave him density. We actually decreased the units, and oddly enough, I see that you actually decreased the COA units too. So now it's went from 32 to 30. However, the ratio, it really should have been only one COA unit decreased, but you made it 2. So I mean, you continually, right from the planning board beginning to now, It's just caving in, caving in, caving in. Well, how about thinking about Garland? Right now, we're looking at a pilot, we're looking at possibly fictitious numbers. I'm not going to say they are, but I'll tell you right now, the numbers don't look right. I pointed it out. I think all of you should be looking into this a little further. You have your professionals to work with you. I suggest, and I'm not saying to scrap everything because it's really too far along, and yes, whoever brought it up about the lawsuits in Cohen and down in Elizabeth. But I think at this last point, pilot, you better table it and you better look into it a little further. You know, for some reason, Russo kind of gave in pretty easy on these percentages in the later years. So, you know, that might be telling you something. I mean, Russo did his own homework and he comes out with such a minimal return to the borough. This is the borough. You guys are supposed to be protecting the borough. So I don't know. If you want me to speak a little bit more, I'll find some wording issues with the financial.
I didn't, Mr. Patterson, I didn't have to gavel with anybody tonight. I don't intend to. So.
Okay.
I appreciate you some.
Right now, okay, I'll stop speaking, but I'm just going to ask you, table this right now. If you want, you can talk to me further because I have a lot of numbers here. I may be the only one that really looked into this in depth. Everybody kind of flipped pages, I'm sure, but you know, how about thinking about it, asking the right question for the next session. So please table this, and then we'll talk about it further. Thank you very much.
No, and I mean, if there's specific questions the council has, I'll address those, but, no, I think all the questions have been addressed.
Anyone else that has come to the microphone? Seeing none, at this time, we'll move on. Someone please make a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 17-14.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 17-14. So moved. Discussion. Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilwoman Blumenstock.
Aye.
Councilman Brouwer.
Absolutely not.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli. Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
And Council President Fisher.
Aye.
Thank you, Council.
You guys are idiots.
Move on to ordinance 17-15. Ms. Ariano, please read by title only.
An ordinance to amend Article 8, Borough Engineer and Chapter 5 Administration Code of Borough to amend Section 38-51 for the position of Borough Engineer.
Do we have any correspondence on this ordinance?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone present wish to be heard on ordinance 17-15? Seeing none, we have a motion to close the public hearing on adoption 17-15.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt ordinance 17-15.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilwoman Blumenstock. Aye. Councilman Brouwer. Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno. Council President Fisher.
Aye.
We'll move on to the introductions of ordinance. Ms. Ariano, please read ordinance 17-16 by title only.
Yes, Mayor. In order to amend 21-37 Schedule 1 residential permit parking zone in Article 16, residential permit parking, chapter 21 vehicles and traffic, and to amend 20-8 there are parking and also no traffic and parking for chapter 21 vehicles and traffic of the code of the Borough which revise the residential concern permit parking zone and to revise the 2-hour parking zone by adding additional street to each.
Do I have a motion to introduce ordinance 17-16?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Blumenstock. Aye. Councilman Brouwer.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Council President Fisher.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, council standing committee reports and other reports. Please, Councilman Bezos.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, guys. Maybe we start. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Clarence Prince will be brought up tonight on a resolution to hire for the position of full-time dispatcher. Mr. Prince comes to us from Carteret, where he has been serving as a Class 1 Special Police Officer and a per diem dispatcher for the past 2 years. With the addition of Mr. Prince, the Borough Police Department will be back to full strength. There has been an uptick in car burglaries in in and around Garwood over the past several weeks. We actually targeted vehicles in parking lots with observable valuables on the front seats. So please make sure not to leave purses, handbags, briefcases, backpacks, or any other items which may be considered valuable in an unintended vehicle. Thirdly, the police department has been invited to take part in the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over grant, which will fund the drunk driving enforcement crackdown between August 18th and September 4th. We encourage everyone to drink responsibly and please don't drink and drive. That's all from our report.
Thank you, Councilman. Public Health, Councilwoman Krueger.
I know report, Mayor.
Streets and Roads Ecology, Councilwoman Blumenstein.
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to normal garbage pickup, the DPW mowed and trimmed all municipal-owned properties and parks. They also removed the debris from all walkways, decks, bleachers, and the basketball court within the sports complex, and watered the flowers in the roadside pots daily. They began to elevate and prune shade trees in various locations throughout the borough, and worked to complete the annual storm sewer inspection program as required by the NJDEP. The DPW also prepared the sports complex grounds and moved tables for the annual seniors picnic and provided assistance to Union County for tent setup and takedown. And as seniors liaison as well, I just want to thank them for that. We had a great day and their work was very much appreciated. As a side note, I would just like to inform the council that the 2002 garbage truck broke down again yesterday, actually on 1 and 9 on the way to offload the garbage. Fortunately, all workers are safe and sound, but the truck is currently in the shop for repair. That's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Fire, Councilman Sarno.
Thank you, Mayor. There were 8 incidences for the fire report concerning June. 4 alarm activations, carbon monoxide alarm, 1 spill in the brook, and 1 NBA hole. Total man hours for the month, 59. All alarms for the meeting that they had, meeting 18 men, 27 hours. They also had a drill, 14 men, 45 hours. Also did different training with the North Star Air Medical Helicopter that they actually landed in Yankton Park. They worked with the first aid squad to, in the event that that would happen. They did some training with that. Did a seminar with, they included a PowerPoint presentation on safety procedures, proper response, recommendations, landing zone responsibilities, a demo landing with regard to fire department engines in emergency response conditions. Additional participation yes, from, as mentioned, the First Aid Squad, the Garwood PD, and the Roselle Park Fire Department. Extra duty was given at Garwood Rocks, 14 men, 110 hours, and the host has 5 men, 35 hours. That's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Finance, Council President Tedesco.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Buildings and Grounds, Councilman Lazzaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update on the currently closed rec center. The Falcon Group has been hired last month to write the plans and specifications to make the repairs to the recreation center. Once we have that information, we'll have a more accurate timetable to share as to when the center will be reopened. That's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Laws and License, Councilman Krueger.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Recreation, Councilman Bezosani.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Garwood Senior Citizen Liaison, Councilman Blumenstein.
Thank you, Mayor. At last Thursday's meeting, we talked some more about the Casal Petro project and the financial agreement that was before the council tonight. Then a nurse from Brook Healthcare spoke to the club about poor circulation and the conditions that can arise from that. Cold feet and cold hands can be indications of cardiovascular disease leading to heart attack and stroke. They can also be indicative of neuropathy. The best thing to do for this is eat healthy foods and most importantly, exercise. Also at last Thursday's meeting, we were treated with a lunch buffet from Vinewife, courtesy of longtime club member Ann Romano, who recently passed away. She wanted the club to have a nice lunch from her, and everyone was very touched. It showed just how thoughtful a person she was. So our next meeting is on July 20th. That's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Library and Mayor Representative, Councilman Lazzaro.
Thank you, Mayor. The library's summer reading program is in full swing. Every Tuesday at 3 p.m. is Kids Craft. Build a Better Wednesday is taking place every Wednesday in July at 3 p.m. Last Wednesday, kids played Giant Jenga and Frog Toss for prizes. Other activities will include footprint painting, building a box city, and sending letters to soldiers. Every Thursday at 3 is Lego Club. No registration is necessary. Make sure you check out the Facebook page, library Facebook page, for the latest Lego creations. And this past rainy Friday, the library invited the summer recreation campers into the library for an impromptu showing of the movie Trolls. On Tuesday, July 25th at 2 p.m., folks from the aquarium in Camden will present Build a Better World, Creature Conservation. Registration is required. Call the library or see the website for more information. And just a reminder, the summer hours of the library started the first week in July. The weekday hours of the library will remain unchanged. However, the library will be closed on Saturdays during July and August. However, regular Saturday hours will begin again on Saturday, September 9th. That's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. School Board Liaison, Councilman Sarno.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Celebration of public events and holidays. Liaison, Council President Tedesco.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Union County Air Traffic Police Advisory Board of Representatives, Councilman Blumenstock.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Administrative Review Committee, Councilman Cooper.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Historical Committee, Council President Tedesco.
All right. Thanks, Mayor. The Historical Committee met this past Saturday, and they are excited to keep working hard to preserve Garwood's history and let the residents know about the great history that we have in the borough. And so they are planning on compiling and then distributing a newsletter, hoping to have it out by the end of September. Also, they're planning some future fundraisers to help go to those efforts. And that's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Our Committee, Councilman Sarno.
We have a meeting tentatively being worked on for next Tuesday at 7. So working on those details.
Thank you. Sariema Officers Reports.
Zoning Enforcement Officer Leslie Stefano for the month of June 2017.
We have a motion to accept the officers' reports.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council? Please step to the microphone and state your full name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Yes?
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Council Avenue, and I apologize for the outburst, but as I said previously, I mean, you know, you're supposed to be working for us, and you're actually supposed to be working hard for us. I mean, I haven't yet to see anybody really come out with something, really talk numbers. It seems like everybody's always talking about lawsuits. I mean, you know, this is probably pretty much a done deal. I mean, it's just now in the site plan stage, but it was very disappointing watching this all the way from the beginning. And of course, you know that I've been outspoken about it all along, saying I don't see any critical flaw. Right from the beginning, developmental committee, through the planning board, and even through the council. You're supposed to all be working for the residents of Garwood. Yes, there are code mandates that we face. Yes, you know, pilots have to be put in place. It's a step-by-step process. I'm not going to deny that. But every time, I did not hear that you were actually supporting the residents of Garwood. It was always running scared of lawsuits, trying to make sure the return on investment is great for the developer. But for Garwood, what happened to Garwood? I even pointed out that Russo was saying we were only going to get $50,000. Russo, the developer. And yet you guys just voted yes. I mean, you know, saying, yeah, okay, just give us a share, we keep the gold mine. And he walks away, 7 years later, he sells it, makes $38 million, and we get nothing. I mean, think about it. All of you should be thinking about this.
We know where our voice is.
I have thought about it, Mr. Patterson.
I mean, I appreciate, you know, there are some on the council that, you know, I mean, you're, obviously you and me think the same, you know, maybe that's scary, but, you know, but, I mean, you know, we understand possibly, you know, Garwood being a little town. Joe Sarno, he went out of his way, and he did get us some more money. But you know, outside of that, I didn't hear anything from Lou and Jennifer. Sarah, I'm surprised because you're a great researcher. You're always looking into things, yet you kind of like didn't do much. You just kind of went rolling along. Is this political? I don't know if this is political. Marky, you know, just to throw you in the pot, too.
Mr. Patterson, I just have to say one thing.
Go ahead.
I stand in a position where the previous council and this council, since September 13, 2016, has always had the people of Garwood on their mind. We hired professionals to seek information. They did a great job, in my opinion. And we've been many, many times in executive session at 10:30 at night trying to air out all these informations that we've been given and make sure we make the correct decision for Garwood.
And I'd also like to thank you, Mayor, also, because I mean, all those questions that I sent in, yes, you did answer them. I didn't like the answers, you know, but you did actually go out of your way to answer them. I mean, one of them said to the best of your ability, and yes, we all work to the best of our ability. And of course, people can get up and criticize. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I mean, like, I stand and I criticize, but I also back it up with some figures, some ideas, some suggestions. I don't do that lightly. I do all the research. You know, maybe you guys don't do as much research as me. I don't know, but I'll tell you, I come out with these questions and these numbers. You guys should be asking. I wasn't in the executive session until 10:30. I agree. And maybe you did ask all the same questions. But maybe later on after the meeting, maybe you'll say, yeah, every question you brought up, I asked. No, maybe you will. But I mean, first of all, I do apologize for the outburst. But things have been very disappointing. This is the largest project in the smallest, nearly the smallest town. You know? So, I mean, we're facing a major change. Nobody likes change, of course, you know. But it is something that was very critical, very large, and we had to do our due diligence. And Mayor, you're saying you did. I'm on the other side of saying you didn't. We all have our opinions, and the dominoes are falling. And you know, there's other projects that may come up. Maybe, you know, hopefully, if everybody's afraid of me getting up here and calling your names, then maybe you'll dig a little deeper. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson.
Thank you for listening.
Oh, Mr. Patterson. I don't mind well, I can't say I love the outburst, but I understand it because this is a very important issue, as you say, and it's one that we are all passionate about. There are some residents that have spoken, and they're very passionate that we just need to get this done. They wish it was done years ago. There are other residents that are very passionate that think we all should vote no to the financial agreement or to the redevelopment plan. And so there are a lot of passions around this because we all love Garwood. So I don't mind in that sense, but I can assure you, you know how I work. And when it finally got to the council's arena, as the mayor said back in September, I was the one right there next door in the gym that said, hey, let's stop right now, let's table this, let's get some independent professionals that this council will vet to help us. We first brought on Mr. Northgrave with a bipartisan vote, completely, 6-0. Then we brought on the financial advisor. We have discussed with them in executive session. I've made phone calls to them. I've had emails going back and forth with them, asking about the financial impact and such. I can assure you work went into this and thought went into this because you're right, Garwood deserves that, absolutely. And so I don't mind your outburst because it's a passionate issue, and I can assure you that we'll keep going on this every step of the way in a way that will hold the developer accountable. He had already agreed to town hall meetings. Those still need to take place before construction starts, during construction, when it's done. I'm all for that. There's still the site plan process. I know I've spoken with a couple members of the planning board and the planner about a couple concerns, and so I know that the planning board has some items that I'm sure they'll be pushing at the site plan approval. That's in their purview, and I support them doing that. And really, I think that's all I have to say. But that's.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Ariano.
Councilman Blumenstock. Aye. Councilman Blumenbrook.
Yes.
Councilman Laszlo.
Aye.
Councilman Ricciardelli.
Aye.
Councilman Zarna.
Aye.
Council President Tedesco.
Aye.
Do we have any additional business? Okay, Move on to new business. I have a proclamation this evening I signed for the Rock Steady Boxing Central Jersey organization, and Councilman Blumenstock, Council President Desper, and myself will be presenting that to the organization on Saturday night. Ms. Ariamo, claimants and claims.
Be resolved, the following names that approve being sin or give over to be one properly signed and verified, and the criminal payroll passes the U.S. Department of ratified.
Do I have a motion to adopt payment and claims?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, Ms. Ariamo.
Councilman Blumenstock.
Aye.
Councilman Lucaro.
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Petroselli.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Council President Disco.
Aye.
Before we adjourn, I'd just like to thank personally all the people that came out tonight to listen to our professionals and hopefully gain some knowledge of the project, and we'll go forward from there. The regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be held on Tuesday, July 25th, 2017, in Council Chambers at 7:15, workshop session to start at 7 p.m. There will be a public hearing in Council Chambers with a pub municipal building, 403 South Avenue, Brooklyn, New Jersey, ordinance 17-16 on Tuesday, July 25th, 2017, at 7:15 p.m. or soon thereafter. I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Good night again.